Hello? Hello? Is the king of the pirates here? Hello? So, okie dokie. So, since the last time we did this, we got from dramatic moment at one of the bridges, which I hate that it's not the only bridge and not the only dramatic moment at a bridge in this arc. It's the only complaint so far. I have another two complaints, and I'll get to them in a moment. Right before they do the biggest emotional thing with Robin, where like the crew's staring down at her, and then you asked me in the last episode, did you get to the thing? Turns out the thing was literally like 4 pages into the next volume, where Robin stands there screaming, "I want to live," and it's a very powerful moment. It really is. And then all the build up for the arc just sort of shit dog. Now we fighting.
Yeah, the crazy part about that is I feel like the best emotional moments that Luffy has had with the other crew members have literally been Nami and Robin. Like, he's kind of had a good, like, decent moments with like Usopp and Sanji, but like Robin and Nami are like the only 2 members of the crew that he had to like convince to like just not give up on their lives, basically.
Because like, well, it's actually interesting they said like the moment with Usopp, because the only good moment with Usopp has actually also come in this arc. Like, this is just the arc where it's like, hey, people who are capable of having emotions, which is not Sanji and not Zoro, Solo, Zoro, what have you, because you guys are the cool guys. You cannot have emotions because you're the cool guys. And don't get me wrong, Usopp's obnoxious as hell, but he has legitimate moments in this arc where I'm like, nice. But they all happen in this arc.
Dude, I really just can't wait for, if there's ever going to be a moment, I would love to see Zoro like actually like question being part of the crew, but I just like don't know if that's ever going to happen, because that's really the only point where Luffy would actually have to have an emotional moment with him. Zoro's just kind of there to be there.
Yeah, no, Hundy P. And like, it's an interesting one, right? Because Zoro's the only person really in the universe that's main weapon of like main style of fighting is at all actually kind of dangerous to Rubber Man. Because like you think about it, it's like, even if Usopp had like big old weird powers, what's he going to do? Shoot lead balls? Well, we all know what guns do to Luffy, right? Like, if Sanji gets all kicky, okay, cool. Rubber Man got like resistance to like takes half damage from blunt damage. Like, what you gonna do? Like, Zoro's the only character who like is set up in a position just by nature of his concept to pose a legitimate threat outside of like, you know, Shanks or Mihawk, swordsman, basically. Yeah. But Zoro being the, you know, a part of the main crew means that he's going to be stronger. Even if he's not canonically stronger presently, he's going to be stronger. So,
yeah, so we should talk about how did you feel about Robin's backstory?
I don't think I'm a particularly paternal type of person. I don't think. So I've mentioned this before, but I'm at the age where my dating pool includes women with like, you know, single mothers, and I think I'd be comfortable being a stepfather. But I don't feel like the instinct to like sire a child. But all of Robin's backstory is just such condensed child neglect that I'm like, no, baby, no, oh, no.
Well, I was going to say we should maybe say spoilers ahead for if you haven't experienced Ennie's Lobby / Water 7. But, I mean, if you're watching this, you probably have.
Yeah, no. So putting your arcs on the volume slot, like covers, is very helpful, except for when you're definitely no longer in that arc and you just haven't decided that we're like, technically I haven't gotten out of Water 7. Whoa. But this is all Ennis Lobby. Yeah. Like the last 4 volumes I read have all taken place on Ennis Lobby.
Yeah, I mean, I think Water 7 is kind of the name for the full arc, but I also think that in the fandom, people call like the end of the arcs like post so and so, like post Alabasta or post Ennies Lobby. So like they're not gonna just print that on the next volumes, unfortunately. But you know, when you hit the next arc, it'll be a different name finally.
Fair. But yeah, no, like Robin's story is so powerful and so sad. And honestly, like scholars are nerds and nerds are punchable. But man, all of the not geologists. All of the archaeologists of Umaru or whatever the fuck.
It's so hard.
Nouns
wasn't even close.
I was all letter off. I was all okay. I'll accept that I'm wrong, but not close. Come on. They are not punchable nerds because they're just good boys and girls who are just doing their darndest to actually not eliminate an entire history. Like, the way that the Navy is presented and the world government is presented up to this point has kind of been gray, right? Like, a lot of bad people work for the world government. Like, your first introduction to that is Axand Morgan, right? Like, way back in, like, the first real arc. Because, like, episode 1 opens on Luffy in a barrel. Yeah. And fat woman who turns hot for a joke. I forget her name.
I mean, I know her name, but...
I'm wearing them down, right? And then like that gets resolved almost immediately, and then boom, dickhead Navy guy.
Oh well, so I was actually something really interesting that I found out recently was there was like I guess you could say like a pilot chapter that Oda released before One Piece that was just titled Romance Dawn, and it was like kind of a proto version of the story. Like it actually shows like early versions of Luffy and Nami. Like Zoro I don't think is present, but then it even like jumps forward in time and like shows them when they're like older. It's like really interesting. But in that, the Navy didn't exist. It was all pirates, and there were bad pirates that were called Morganeers, and then there were good pirates that were called Peacemains. And so like the Morganeers clearly is kind of what became Captain Morgan, probably, you know, because it like that name is just too similar. I just thought that was really interesting because I guess the Navy just didn't exist initially.
That is actually pretty interesting.
But when you think about it, the Navy is kind of just like pirates. Like they're just pirates that have control over the world because they also sail. Their crews are also designed pretty much the exact same way as pirate crews. Yeah.
I mean, turns out when your world is mostly water, most things are pretty similar to pirates. But yeah, it's like the Navy up to this point has been decently morally gray. Like, they're the antagonistic force, but there is always that question of, like, morality and justice and stability. And then they introduce the Buster Call, which is just annihilating an island and everyone on it with neither doubt or repercussion. And it's like, okay, cool. So bad guys definitively. And so it's just cool to like have that hammered in. Quick shout outs to Jaguar D. Saul, former Vice Admiral Giant. It's got the D name, which doesn't that imply that like he's part of Luffy's family? Isn't that like Luffy's like family thing?
I mean, technically, the D initial isn't like a blood-related thing. I mean, he hasn't confirmed as such, but it's pretty obvious by the fact that so many different people have that initial. But I think the idea is more so that the people with the D initial are descended from families that fought against the world government during the Void Century, because like there was clearly a group of people that fought and lost,
Right.
and that's why the world government now rule the world. So yeah, they're not like blood related, but that's why they kind of show up every once in a while. Like, you haven't been introduced to Trafalgar Law yet.
No, Mushroom Hat Man.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be like a snow leopard pattern, but he also has the D initial.
He has a very fun red-green deck. But yeah, no, so like big old giant dad who has a conscience about exploding an island. Surprising, like a lot of manga and anime try to introduce a character and make you care for them very quickly. I was very surprised how much I cared for Jaguar. And like Robin's flashback is the duration of less than a full volume. And I was legitimately saddened when he, spoiler alerts, got murked as shit. Like, that whole sequence was so good. And like giving Robin being reunited with her mom mere minutes before mom gets the big dead. Oh, like, Oda, sir, you didn't have to do her like that, but holy, like, everybody's pretty sad in general in One Piece, but god damn, dude, calm down. Who hurt you? What black-haired woman hurt you such that you're just like, no, fuck her? Like, holy shit. Yeah, very good. And then, like, most of what I watched was fighting, which the setups for, like, the fights and, like, having CP9 be as dangerous as they were was very good. And then it was awkwardly handled kind of quickly. Like, we spent multiple volumes, like, setting up these, like, squaring offs and, like, having multiple, like, interactions of, like, them, like, the Straw Hats losing ground and losing these fights. And then the way that they win kind of feels super arbitrary. Like, I don't know why Sanji learned how to turn his foot on fire. And I don't know why that beats Wolfman. But both of those things occurred.
Yeah, so I was doing a lot of thinking about this arc in particular, and I definitely just, like, the fights are not something that I've ever felt Oda is strongest at, Like, usually when fights happen in One Piece, it's like, oh, these characters fought, and then it was just, like, beating the shit out of each other for, like, a bunch of chapters until one person comes out on top. And I do think that is kind of the problem with the ennies lobby fights. Like, honestly, my favorite ennies lobby fights are Luffy the first time he goes Gear Second, because that's just kind of a showcase of what he can do now. It's not really like a hard fight for him, but then, like, I mean, I like Zoro's fight mostly because he like kind of struggles. Like, he doesn't like struggle super hard, but like at least the fight doesn't like drag on forever. It's kind of a back and forth, and then he does ultimately just kind of reveal a big power up, which I think that's another flaw with these fights, is that they're all kind of just an avenue for, oh, new big ability, and none of the abilities really are like built up,
Yeah.
Like, they just kind of happen, and you're just like, oh, okay, I guess this is a thing. And like, over time, those abilities have been explained more. Whether or not you call that good writing, I guess, is up to you. But I mean, I think it's fine.
So he's not saying that's up to you, by the way. He didn't make eye contact with me, but that's a me thing. That's an in before Jack says some shit. But so what I was thinking about, like, with those power-ups in particular, is one thing that I like about One Piece, especially when it comes to, say, Zolo, is that for the longest time, he doesn't get random power-ups. He doesn't unveil a new power. We see him almost dead. And so for like the first half of like the content up until this point, he's in recovery. And then he gets fucked up by Mihawk. And then he's in recovery. So we never really find out the upper tiers of his power. This is the first time where randomly having 3 heads and like 8 arms or 6 arms. This is the first time where it's like, all right, brother, where did this come from? Because you couldn't do this before. To your own admittance, you've been training for this. Where? When? The Going Merry is not that big. What happened here? Yeah. This is like the first time for any of them where it's really like, sir, I have questions. Gear 2 is interesting. Gear 3 is Gear 2, but again, and I hate that he went from Gear 2 and into Gear 3 in the same arc. Like, that's kind of not great. Like what if Gohan went Super Saiyan 2 and also Goku went Super Saiyan 3 in the Cell games? Like, yeah, that's not cool.
I mean, my response to that is mostly that they're kind of both a different power up. I'm not a huge fan of Gear 3rd personally. I've never been a huge fan of Gear 3rd because I kind of just don't like his fist gets bigger. Like, what's that supposed to do? Like, from a physical standpoint, he's not making his fist more dense, so he can't just hit harder. He's just making his fist bigger so he can hit a bigger surface area, you know?
Therefore dispersing
yeah, like,
the impact.
Yeah. And, I mean, honestly, that's kind of been that's been Oda's biggest weakness, I think, with Luffy's power-ups, is just, his fist gets bigger, means stronger now.
Also, like, he bites his finger so... It would be one thing if they said that he's, like, inflating his flesh, which is not a sentence that I want to hear, and I'm upset with myself for saying, but they specify that he inflates his bones. He's, by breathing into his bones, he is inflating his bones. Again, not a sentence I wanted to have to read, but also, like, my guy, your bones ain't air. Like, did you bite into your thumb bone? Is your thumb severed now? And even if that's the case, that's a different bone than the other bones we see you inflating. Just say he does big punch. That's okay. Yeah. I wouldn't have questioned if Bluto started teleporting. But if you tell me there's a door in the atmosphere... Like, it's that again. Like, the harder you try to define it, the dumber it becomes. Yeah. Apart from that, the rest of the fights were fine. Zoro's fight against Giraffeman was very messy. Just from a visual standpoint. Because, like, big ol' limmies, doing a bunch of kicks, air cuts. It's a lot of lines. And there are parts where you cannot tell what's going on. Like... It's just like there are 2 or 3 pages in like the big climax of it where I'm like, is that a head? Is that an ear? What is that? And like up to that point, the fight was fine. Usopp having a moment to be cool was kind of nice. Because after Luffy did do the big sag where he's like, I'm done. I'm tapped out. And Usopp basically got to say, hey. Yeah. The fuck are you doing? Stop that. And so having that moment was kind of nice. And then doing it again in a couple of pages where after like Luffy rallies again, beats Rob DeLuca. And then okay, that one's really close.
I mean, it is.
And then, like, falls down, unable to move again. And it's like, all right, we've been here. We just saw this. Frankie is Bae. Frankie is before all others. Like, oh my God, what a dude, what a man, what a mighty good man. I love him so much. I hate that they gave him a fart jetpack. that was awful. Like, there was a very real, like page where I'm like, I think, like, between this, like, I didn't think about it until, like, I got to Luffy doing Gear 3. But between big inflating ass Frankie and then big titty Luffy, not like actually titty, but like he like puffs up his chest real big, there's just a moment where I'm like, did Oda find inflation porn before this volume? Because, like, this is weird that it happens twice.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's obviously kind of meant for comedic effect, but that's beside the point, because, yeah, it is weird.
Well, are you telling me Inflata ass is not a serious 100% plot point?
Yes, I am. Yeah, my thoughts on Gear Third, I guess I already kind of stated, but yeah, Frankie gets to do a lot of cool stuff this time around. Like, he gets to, doesn't he like save Chopper from like falling down the waterfall?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just trying to think like more about my opinions on the fights, because I think that's obviously not the strongest part of this arc. And I mean, the reason why everyone loves this arc is mostly just for its like emotional stakes and like how, you know, important. I mean, this is like one of the few times in the story where you like really feel like the stakes and like what's going down. But
Yeah.
he also always Oda always falls into the same kind of routine where like Luffy just gets beat down and then he gets up because he's just durable. Like, I mean, they're just not like strategic fights. They're just like who can beat the crap out of the other person.
I get knocked down, but I get up again. Ain't never gonna get
I mean, and like then Luffy literally just beats Lucci by
doing what he did, but again.
Yeah, I know. Just like, doesn't he do Gatling and then one final big punch out the wall? Like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
One thing I will say that I noticed with Luffy fights is Gum Gum, I don't remember if it's rifle or spiraling, or of I think it's rifle. He twists his hand.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Which is actually kind of cool because as a rifle analog, it mirrors the way that the barrels are like bored to spin the bullet so that it pierces the wood. Like, I didn't realize that until this, and I'm like, oh hey, actually, hey, that's neat. To go back to Robin as a child, just deserving better. Because I'm going through the pictures of the pages that I took. Robin rowing away from her home after watching Jaguar get absolutely killed, and flashing back within the flashback to when he taught her to laugh through the pain, because if you're laughing while you're sad, your body will want you to be happy. Watching her do his dumb laugh as she paddles away like a 5-year-old paddling into who knows what.
Yeah.
Ugh! And then there's like the montage of her growing up with people betraying and trying to kill her. Usopp got to do a cool thing, which is neat. Them shooting at the flag of the world government to like declare war to get that was actually like really good. That was really good. Why did a sword eat an elephant fruit and not an elephant eat a sword fruit? Where's the mouth on a sword, Forrest?
That, I was gonna say, that's not the first time you've seen a weapon with a devil fruit. You saw one in Alabasta. There was like a gun that was like a dog devil fruit. Anyway, like, that's still something that has not been explained to this day, because we know that we just don't know exactly how the fuck devil fruits work yet. So it's kind of one of those things that's still up in the air, because that's something that like Vegapunk figured out how to do, and he's like been researching devil fruits for years and years.
Vegapunk is my second favorite steampunk off genre.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of theories surrounding it, but I don't have to go into those here. It's basically like all objects in the One Piece world have some form of energy inside of them, because we know that there's a type of, I guess it's a type of hockey called the voice of all things, where you can like, you can essentially hear the life and everything on the planet. It's vague and still unexplained, but I'm assuming that the fact that inanimate objects can have devil fruits in them has to do with that, because that means that, like, if there is something in a devil fruit that is intangible, there's clearly something in a fucking weapon that is intangible, and if you combine those two things somehow through science bullshit, like, yeah.
I don't know enough about Shintoism to say that that feels Shintoistic, but it definitely feels very animistic, very like everything has a spirit. Yeah, no. Speaking of everything having a spirit, the Going Merry! The Going Merry! The fuck is that shit?
Dude. Okay, but he was building up to that shit since Skypiea, because do you remember when
Little Boy Ghost, I remember.
Yes, so
and I remember calling it dumb.
But literally that ties into literally what I was just talking about with the voice of all things, because we know that inanimate objects can have a spirit of some kind, but like I feel like the thing is, up till this point in the story, you don't really get a feeling for that. And I was thinking before we started talking about like why the Going Merry stuff impacted me so much. And even to this day, I don't really know. But I do think that he does a really good job of presenting that at a prior point and not just having it pop up all of a sudden. Because like you get to experience it with Usopp a little bit, because Usopp kind of like hears the Going Merry occasionally when they're in Water 7 and he's like by himself, and like we know that like he took such good care of the ship that the idea, they kind of touch on it in like Frankie's backstory, I think. Or maybe it's Iceberg who tells Usopp about it, because Iceberg mentions something.
Tells him about
yeah, how like there's like a legend that like if you take really good care of a ship, it'll kind of like grow a spirit of its own. And like I really like it. The scene really hits me hard like every single time I read it, just because you've been with that ship for a really long time, and then just the moment where Luffy has to burn it is like a really strong moment in my opinion.
Like, I don't want to take that away from you, and like more power to you, brother. And that's definitely, I think, what was supposed to be felt. But I just like the Little Boy Ghost in Skypiea. I'm just like, okay. But also now I'm like, well, why was he a little boy ghost back then? But like actually just itself now. Because like, so what happened is the Going Merry got washed up onto Galilee during Big Storm, and Iceberg frantically repaired it. And then during Big Storm, the Going Merry sailed itself to Ennies Lobby, knowing that they were there, first of all. Okay, Going Merry. And then just shows up to Deus Ex boat them out of a we're dying here situation. And then it dies exactly in front of like the Galilee. Like, okay, fine, fair enough. You've already made a boat MacGuffin, so anything beyond that's like just an extension of that. But then everybody there gathered hears the Going Merry talking to the Straw Hats. Like everyone, even all of the nameless Galilee people, because like isn't it supposed to be like an emotional connection thing? Also, hey, Going Merry, hey, Going Merry, love yourself more, baby. Like Going Merry started to like kind of like victim blame itself a little bit. It starts going, I know I wasn't always the easiest to steer. I'm sorry I wasn't the best at flying. It's like, hey, Mariko, you're a ship. It's not your fault that they sent you to a cloud. Like, girl, Stop. Shush. You did fine. I'm excited to see what comes next, which is not something that I think I've felt in One Piece up till this point. Damn, Oda. You horny.
What's new?
Pussycat. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So, question corner, horniness. He includes a question where someone asks about their cup size of Nami. Oda, you didn't have to do that, but even if you did, you didn't then have to go, I don't know, that's hard to determine. Hey, female readers, could you tell us Nami's cup size? Because I've given you their measurements. Also, Robin's? It's like, question asker didn't even ask about Robin, Oda. So now, who you gonna blame next time, Oda? And then he includes an answer, which fair enough. You ask for you ask for an answer, you get an answer. Oh, but what is it? It upsets me. Oh. The picture that he puts next to that question is Nami in the bathtub with her titties out. He brings that panel up again. It's like, why? Also, he then again in the answer includes, oh yeah, Robin is also that size. Oda, stop it. And then all of Robin versus Secretary all of Nami versus Secretary is just one prolonged, you couldn't read this in a library. This would get this taken out of the young adult section. Like,
I mean, he's definitely horny on Maine. I mean, obviously, because we see how he designed Robin and Nami. But yeah, I don't have any defense for that. He's just fucking weird.
We watch Secretary bathe.
Yeah, I know.
While talking at Nami, who is just full tits out on the floor. It is, ugh.
Yeah. It sucks, but...
And then this panel, I was just like, no.
And you'll never know what that panel looks like.
Ugh.
I don't know. Any last thoughts, I guess?
This arc was almost perfect.
Yeah.
I would have even given it perfect if, like, even merry-go nonsense withstanding, I would still have given it perfect if it wasn't for the egregiousness that was the Nami Secretary fight. Oh, also, Frankie's butt blast. That's upsetting to me on a deeply personal level. So Frankie being cola powered was very fun because there's a bit where Chopper kept going to the fridge to get him cola and just like kept trying it out with different shit like carrot juice. And the effect that had on his pompadour, very Chopper went like full Sasquatch.
Well, and so that's actually something I brought up in one of our previous discussions because that is like people think that that's like his forced awakening because he like loses his mind, and when you get to Impel Down, you'll like meet some characters. Not really meet them. They're just kind of enemies that are like awakened zone fruit users, but they lost their minds. And yeah, so like, I think it makes perfect sense because we still don't know the scientific aspect of devil fruits. And like Chopper's whole thing is messing around with his devil fruit through like medicines, basically. Right. And it's like, how the fuck does that work? Like, we don't know. And like, he basically just like forces himself to awaken. But then also like, why is that the way that he looks? You know, like I was watching a video about his devil fruit in particular. Cause like if it's a human fruit, like why the hell does he still look like a reindeer, you know? And so, I mean, obviously it's all speculation, but it's like, what if it was like a Wendigo devil fruit or something? Like that, like it's a mythical zone. Cause like we know all sorts of different mythical zone fruits now, and like even Luffy's is a mythical zone fruit, which yeah, That's a whole nother discussion. But that's going to be in the anime next weekend, and I'm so hyped, dude. It's going to be the best weekend ever.
So what I'm hearing is I shouldn't talk to you next weekend. Unless I'm ready. But no, like, he looks like such a delightful, like, creature from the Black Lagoon, like, yeah, Wendigo, like, looking. It's honestly really cool. There's a lot of cool shit in this arc. There really is. And then, like, the ending, like, it just sort of kind of fumbles the ball. Like, building up to, like, the final volume, it very much fumbled the ball. Going back to, like, Luffy just sort of getting the shit kicked out of him and then rallying and then kicking the shit out of people back. It's a very common wrestling thing also, fun fact, for dark matches or just non-televised events in between their televised things. If you have big talent there, they don't want to really run the risk of getting injured. So they don't do like particularly interesting, particularly difficult things. There's not a lot of back and forth. One person will be just absolutely smearing the other, and then one reversal happens. And then, so it's like I watched back home, I watched Seth Rollins versus, I think at the time it was Baron Corbin still, not King Corbin or Happy Corbin. I watched Seth Rollins and Baron Corbin, and it was like 6 minutes of Corbin just giving it to Seth, and then Seth just hits him with a Randy spear out of nowhere, and then it's 6 minutes of Seth giving it to Corbin, and then it's the pin, and it's like, wow, this was the main event. I'm glad that I got to see these men in real life, like even when they're like one-sided jobbing for each other, it's still phenomenal. But then I think of, like, back to like the intergender tag match where Dana Brooke was just having a fun time with the audience, and it's like, this is what I want out of dark matches. This is it.
Yeah, I mean, probably my last thoughts on the fight thing is like, that's kind of the way that Oda writes fights. And I feel like it's kind of his crutch because it's his way of like getting Luffy to the point where it's like, it makes sense for him to win. But like, even that being said, like, he kind of just repeats that through like every arc. And like, thinking about Ennies Lobby, like Ennies Lobby is not too different from Wano in terms of its structure, because like basically the exact same fucking thing happens, except it just takes longer. Like literally Luffy gets defeated 3 times by Kaido before he finally rallies in the end and wins the fight.
Kaido's big dragon daddy, right?
Yeah.
Right, cool. Oh god, I was thinking about something.
It's like Oda is amazing in the like build up of every arc and like giving you emotional stakes and like developing the plot of the arc, and then it's kind of when the final climax happens with all the fights where he kind of drops the ball, in my opinion. And I mean, that might be a controversial take, especially on the internet, but like, I love Water 7 and Ennies Lobby. Don't get me wrong, but he does kind of fumble the ball on the final fights of every arc. In my
Train Woman's a mermaid. That's a thought that I just remembered. Train Woman's a mermaid.
Yeah.
That's all that I have about that.
Yeah, you haven't even gotten to Fishman Island. I don't know. That's gonna be a wild ride.
That's where you pick up Jinbei, right?
Kinda. That's when you like first meet him and like he becomes more of a character. But
So
well, actually, prior to that, because he becomes more of a character during Impel Down and Marineford, but then like you get more of his backstory in Fishman Island.
So I was actually looking at like the next 4 volumes, and in the next 4 volumes we pick up 2 more, or not 2 more. We pick up Brook.
Yeah.
So like Brook is right around the corner. We go a long time without picking up an extra crew member, and then on the inside of like an arc and a half, we pick up 2 more crew members. Like, damn.
Yeah.
Okay, that's real fast. It's a weird like pacing. So I've been in my yearly. I don't plan on doing it, but about once a year I get sad and play through Mass Effects 1, 2, and 3. And I'm in the middle of I just started Mass Effect 3. And it feels very much like a BioWare RPG where it's like, hey, here's your introductory collection of crew members, and then let's do a little bit of plot, and now you can go get some optional crew members. Which, unfortunately, very much makes Frankie and Brooke feel like optional crew members. But Frankie, I think, is, up to this point, unironically and without contention, my favorite character in One Piece. He's such a fucking goon. He's big and dumb and stupid, but in non-harmful ways. And he's a good guy, but just a big dumb dummy, except not, like, he doesn't take himself seriously. And I love that about him so much. Oh, I love him. I do wish to never see the human centaur again. Because it's objectively body horror, and it terrifies me.
I don't know. I don't have any more thoughts.
I'm just thinking about the human centaur, and I'm upset.
Should we call it there? Okay. Goodbye.